Hi everyone and welcome to the show. Today we have Andrew Rusling on the show. Andrew is an incredible agile coach. We met in Scrum Australia conference in 2016 when Andrew and I were both presenting. Andrew was talking about how to increase the delivery speed and value delivery capability of agile teams, going back to theory of constraints and lean thinking. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks, Arash. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite to come on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Kanban. A while back, you wrote an article on LinkedIn about undercooked Kanban implementation, and it was quite inspiring for me. So I want to start by asking, what's the difference of Kanban and Kanban?
Well, it's Kanban with a lowercase k, and that's the Japanese word for a signal card or a signal flag. It's a signal to pull more work through our system. And so it's a pull methodology approach. And then there's Kanban with an uppercase K, which is short for the Kanban method. It's an evolutionary change for technology businesses, written by David J. Anderson, as per the Blue Book that he wrote, and others that have come after that. So one's a meta methodology for improving your technology business, and the other is a practice or a tool to help pull work through your system.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about the Kanban method, the meta methodology, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people say Kanban is just Scrum without the planning. What do you think about that?
I think that's where they've missed out on understanding what the Kanban method is about. On the surface, it seems like there's just less rules, there's less things you have to do. If you've got more freedom, you can just go for it. But really, the Kanban method is an approach, a holistic approach to how do you how do you improve your business in an evolutionary way? And with that, it means that there's 4 principles, there's 6 practices, and they're meant to work in concert. They should be all combined together. It's not a cherry-picking solution. Absolutely. So when you just have a couple of those, you get some benefit, but you're missing out on a lot of value that can be achieved.
So what are these 6 practices of Kanban?
There's visualizing your work, which is the first practice. The second practice is limiting your work in process, which is that helps us to achieve a move from a push to a pull-based system. And then there's managing flow, which is the more obtuse step, the harder practice to take on. It involves a whole range of things to understand the flow in your system and find ways to improve it. Part of that is reducing waste, but that's only a small part of it. There's introducing feedback loops, which can be feedback loops around how we work and how we operate, but also about the business as a whole. And so there's a set of meetings that look at all aspects of the business, and we apply the relevant meetings for our system. There's explicit policies, which is the 5th one. So visual explanations of the rules of the system, because the Kanban method is a very rule-based approach. Everyone should be following the rules explicitly until we find out there's an issue with them, which leads us on to the 6th practice, which is evolutionary collaborative change. So we change those rules and our system and our approach to better achieve the goals of the system.
Fantastic. Yeah, so these rules, many people may not even have heard about them, and they think, we're doing Kanban. So let's start with the first one, which is the most important one, and that's I would say, maybe not the most important one, but the foundation, which is visualizing the work. Can you tell us more about this? Like, isn't it enough just to have a board, and isn't that just visualization?
Well, we can just throw some stickies up on a wall, but we need to look at why are we visualizing the work? How is that helping us? And we visualize it so that we can make good decisions, either as an individual or as a team. So if that visualization doesn't help us make better decisions, then there's more value we can get out of it. So we need to look at does it correctly or appropriately show our workflow? Does it show all the types of work? So is there some hidden work, some work that's not described properly? Does it tell us about each of those work items? Who's working on it? Is it progressing? Is it blocked? What other information we need to make a good decision?
Absolutely. So any information that's required for decisions and help us with better understand needs to be in a way radiated on the board.
Yeah, we want it to be self-evident. And hopefully we can look at the work in its entirety. So we look at each individual piece, but also how is the system as a whole operating. This is where physical boards excel. One of the reasons physical boards excel over electronic systems is it's much easier to see the entire body of work, the different phases that it's in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the challenges that many teams are facing now with the COVID and working from home restrictions. Do you have any tips for better visualizing and using information radiators when we are not working in the same office, same room?
I would say use a range of views. So one view may not be suitable for all situations. So you'd want a very zoomed in view to look at the individual pieces of work and how they relate to the pieces just around them. And you want a more zoomed out view, which has less information, but shows all of the pieces of work in the system. So some tools allow you to have multiple views, and you can get the best of both worlds there. It's certainly very challenging to do it effectively, but it's worth putting a bit of effort into.
Absolutely. You kind of need to design your own home office with boards and sticky notes and things like that. Okay. So next thing I was going to ask was about, you talk about work classes, visualizing work classes and visualizing the entire workflow rather than just the process. Can you tell us more about that as well?
Not all work is created equal. So we have the normal work that our normal service that our team provides, and most work will fit into that. We probably have some urgent, important requests that come along from time to time, and they should be treated differently. And then we also need to consider how are we improving? What's our continuous improvement activities? How are we improving the framework, the foundation of the work that we do? So right there, we've talked about three classes of service effectively. We've got the standard class of service where the bulk of our work fits into. We've got a class of service generally called an expedite. So things that get rushed through the system, get a lot of attention. And then we've got the intangibles down the bottom, which often get forgotten about. And that's the continuous improvement activities, the incrementally improving our framework or our technology or our foundation. And it's important to reserve capacity for those things. Otherwise they get squeezed out by these other practices. This is especially true if you start to follow Kanban properly, which is very rules driven. And the rules will say, if there's an expedite, everyone jumps on it. If there's a standard class of service, that comes next. And if there's anything else, it gets ignored. So you need to have a minimum amount of stuff that's progressing to improve us. Otherwise, we won't get better at delivering everything else.
Absolutely. So a really quick win for any agile team now, irrespective of if they're using Kanban or Scrum, could be just going back to their work, to their wall now, and adding a continuous improvement reserved capacity somewhere down below, so they can put actions from their retrospective there, and they can dedicate some capacity to that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good win. When I talk about retrospectives with teams, one of the key blockers to good retrospectives is following up on those actions. So visualizing those next to the other work that you have, and then taking that extra step of reserving capacity for them, even if it's a tiny amount of capacity, It helps to visualize it to the team, to any observers or any stakeholders. Yeah, very important.
Absolutely. Now, how about workflow steps versus process steps? What do you mean by that? How should we visualize that?
So the work itself goes through a series of different workflow states, and some of those states within those states we're actively working on it. So we're testing something, or we finished testing, but we don't want to push it into the next state. So because then we turn into a push system, which starts to break, everything breaks down. So we want it to be a pull mechanism. So once we've finished testing, we need to have a bit at the end here, which is ready for the next phase. Maybe that's ready for deployment. Or if you're coding something, then you're doing the code and then there's ready for testing.
Mm.
So that's a column within that process state, that workflow state. And having that helps prevent it turn back into a push system.
Absolutely. So if I finish coding and I move it to test, it means I'm pushing to test. But if I am moving to ready for test, it's technically still in development, but then it's a pull capacity for the tester. Now,
it's to signal to the testers that there's more work there ready to be pulled in when they're ready.
Absolutely. So now, so basically, correct me if I'm wrong. So we are visualizing the reality of the work, the reality of the states that a piece of work goes through, irrespective of what process we are following, irrespective of what Jira is saying and things like that. So board needs to represent reality, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's something I often say is the board should reflect reality, even if that's really messy and ugly. If the reality is messy and ugly, that the board should show that. And then as a team, we want to be empowered to do something about that. Because we all want neat, beautiful boards, or most of us do. And if it's messy and there's a big blob of stuff here, let's do something about it. Let's figure out what's blocking it. Let's see if we can improve that flow and get those things moving through neatly.
Absolutely. Now, what's going to happen if we have something blocked by an external dependency? How should we visualize that?
First of all, I'd avoid having a separate blocked column. It kind of, when you have a separate block column, anything's blocked, you shove in there, creates a bunch of issues. One, it's hard to track the cycle time of that thing properly. Your cumulative flow chart gets out of whack. But more importantly, it says, that's not my problem. I don't have to think about that anymore. And it creates a mentality of, well, I'll just quickly do my stuff and then push it over there. Quickly do my stuff, push it over there. It's not creating an approach where, as a team, we want to get good at removing blockers. If we're a team that can quickly remove any blocker, nothing can stop us. And our throughput is just going to go through the roof. We're just going to start smashing out and delivering heaps of value. So you want to encourage people to focus on removing those blockers. It should be an issue for the team that it is blocked. Let's swarm on that and do something about it. Yeah, some of those blockers will be with other parties, and it's very difficult to get that to move faster. And that's okay. That's part of the reality. But in general, we want to get good at removing blockers.
So the analogy I use for this, what I say is, we want to move away from mentality of doing my job to the mentality of getting the job done, right? Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Watch the work, not the worker.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a big part of what undercooked Kanban is all about.
Yeah.
People love to be busy. And a lot of the undercooked Kanban is because people just want to pull work in, push, and just grab the next bit. They just want to always be doing their speciality.
So last question.
But we want to get the team to think about going.
Absolutely. Last question, which is related to what you were just talking about. What do you think about the work in progress? How can we limit our work in progress? How can we reduce that WIP limit?
Well, there's lots of different approaches. So yeah, that's such a broad question. So column
let me make
limits
it
are
more
the
specific.
simplest approach.
Okay, let me make it more specific. If I'm coaching an agile team. I go there, I see that they have a lot of things in development step, and I just stick a number up there and say your WIP limit in development is 3. You're not allowed to work on any more items than 3. Is it a good thing, bad thing, or how can I make it more effective?
So that might be helpful. It needs to be done collaboratively. Whatever you do, we shouldn't just impose a rule on the team. Kanban's all about being a collaborative, evolutionary change. So we want to surface what the issue is. In this case, dev is overloaded for some reason. As a team, we want to talk about that and figure out what's going on. What can we do to remove that blocker? This is where the theory of constraints and the 5 focusing steps is a practice and approach that can help us to tackle that bottleneck. And that would say we want to identify the constraint, then we want to elevate that constraint, then subordinate to the constraint, and then improve everything, and then hopefully the constraint's moved and we go again. That's a topic for a different day, I think.
Absolutely, that's a very big conversation. Okay, thanks so much, Andrew. It was such a pleasure having you. I really enjoyed our talk. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about today?
Just keen to hear that people have taken their undercooked Kanban, they've applied the principles of Kanban, thought about all the practices, and started to apply all those and start to get more value. So I'm keen to hear people's stories of how they've given it a go, hopefully seeing some more value delivery.
Absolutely. So I will put a link to Andrew's blog article in the description, and please go there and check it out. He's got the links to the 5 questions of theory of constraint, and he's got links to another great article about something called static systems thinking approach to Kanban. Static, I like that one too. And please comment on Andrew's article or comment here on the channel, and keep in touch. Absolutely, would love to hear what you've done.
Okay, thanks so much,
Andrew.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely been a pleasure, and thanks for your time, and really loved our conversation as always.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching.